I don't like it. I know it exists, and I abhor it, but I also understand that in this country we don't lock people up or silence people because of what they say. But I think the other piece that has to be understood is that while it applies to everybody, we should not confuse it with equal protection. And I think that's part of what George was saying about what happens to Muslim students and others, Arab students, other people from the Middle East, Iranians. And the Academy allows that to happen a lot. One of the things that makes me sad here is that many of the Middle Eastern student groups have chosen to be apolitical because it's frightening to be political. And that is not right. And I have to say, that even the regulations and the rules are not applied equally. Even if they apply equally, they don't get applied equally. And I don't think that made any sense to anybody. But let me just give you a quick example. There are certain regulations on campus which only get enforced if there's a complaint. And one of the things that I can tell you from my own history with them is that whenever Students for Justice for Palestine have an event, there will be a complaint. So you will see people washing chalkings off the ground because, well, chalkings are not, it's against the regulations. The same time you could walk across the campus and see Teach for America or any number of other things. And the reason that happens, of course, is that you only have to react institutionally when there's a complaint. And so, you know, it works out to be a little bit like driving while black, where you'll get stopped because you're black for maybe an infraction or maybe the possibility of an infraction that other people won't get stopped by. And just one final thing as an example of that, I was at a fundraiser the other night with my husband, and we were approaching a buffet line, and all of a sudden somebody was asking Cedric something. And I couldn't figure out what it was, and I stopped, and the man, security guard, looked at me and said, "Oh, is he with you?" And I said, "Uh-huh." And it was all done, okay? But had I not been there, he may well have been rousted from an event at which his brother-in-law was being honored. So the point is that this is not all an even playing field. And we need to understand that, as Chomsky has said, and as Ed Herman have said, there are limits to what we tolerate as thinkable thought. And we have to bounce against that all the time. We have to fight against it. And I think I'm done time-wise, so thank you very much.
Okay, so I have two quick requests of you all. For those of you who have papers, like the little white papers, please write on those papers questions that you will have for the panelists, because we're going to have them sit on this panel. If you have questions for them, please write them down on those papers. And then also for people, well, there's not really that many people standing up right now, but for those of you who are standing up, please find a seat, because we're having to turn away people, because like we can't allow more people inside. So if you're standing, I would request please fill in the empty seats, because there's a few seats in here that are empty. So if you could please, raise your hand if you have a seat next to you, because we really need to fill these seats so that we can allow more people to come in. Because we want everyone to be included in this event, because it's amazing, it's beautiful. We don't want to exclude anyone, so. Extended elbows, if you have a seat next to you. All right, so I'm gonna give the mic to Sophia. She's gonna introduce the next panelist.
All right, everyone get nice and cozy. You know, we like it. That's how we do community here. All right, so our next speaker is an associate professor in the Global and International Studies Department who specializes in international security, political sociology, global ethnography, and gender, race, and post-colonial theory. He holds affiliate appointments in feminist studies, sociology, Middle East studies, and Latin American and Iberian studies. His research traces the origins and intersections of new patterns of police militarization, security, governance, humanitarian intervention, and state restructuring in the megacities of the Global South. His books include The Cairo Cosmopolitan, Politics, Culture, and Urban Space in the New Globalized Middle East, and he is Paul Amar.
So this is an amazing event. This brings me back about 10 years. I haven't felt this kind of atmosphere, this amazing kind of coalition coming together in a long time. And I think it kind of reflects what's going on in the world. You know, we have our own uprising. We have our own amazing kind of leaderless revolution starting to come together, and that's very exciting. I hate when people have to take it back to the 9/11 days, but I have a reason, and I'm going to get out of there real fast. But when I was in my first job 10 years ago, when I was, of course, 11 years old, I was my first professor job as a political science professor at the City University of New York. In then 2001, I was the only professor in political science who worked on the Middle East when the 9/11 events happened. And at the time I was also the faculty advisor for both the Queer Students Union and the Muslim Students Association, which a lot of people usually would like go silent for about 3 seconds. And after I said that, because it came up in conversation constantly at Hunter College in CUNY during and after the 9/11 events, because I was kind of running teach-ins around the clock for months at that point. And, but of course, the kind of people that couldn't imagine how that could be possible are the kind of people we're dealing with here still today. But in those days, of course, we really were facing constant efforts from the university to shut down every event we could possibly have, and then many, of course, civil organizations were trying to stop those kind of groups from meeting in the same room because they thought it would cause some kind of civil conflict, some kind of violence would erupt. One group would attack the other. They just assumed certain things about people's identities that they wouldn't be able to mix. So the fact that that doesn't occur to any of us or any of the people around us is amazing. And I was, you know, at a university where the groups, you know, did interact, but also had very significant differences. The Muslim Students Association at CUNY was a more conservative branch. They had gender segregation in all the meetings, and when I was in the meetings, I'd just sit in the aisle in the middle. Some people thought, oh, you must be chaperoning to make sure no one crosses from one side to the other. I said, well, no, I'm just not sure which side I should be sitting on yet. I haven't committed yet. You know, we have now, I think, the reason why it's such an exciting moment now is really we've got to another point in history, and I think people like Horowitz are desperately trying harder than ever to keep us in that same moment in which we thought that there was an essential, you know, in which there was an idea in America, certainly we didn't think that there really was this enemy that the people could be mobilized against based upon simplifying our ideas about what we're afraid of and how we identify and who we are and how we organize. And that we could be split up into tiny little groups that were afraid of each other, and that we would then be able to be mobilized and group together against this thing called the terrorists, which was supposedly the same thing as the Muslims. But that logic is falling apart, and a lot of that is because, of course, what's happening in the Middle East. Even the general public that's been saturated with these kinds of images and these very simple, hateful ideas about what a Muslim is and what the Arab world and what the Muslim world is about, now has this rich spectrum of other images in their mind. They have these beautiful set of other possibilities and hopes when they think of Muslims, when they think of Arabs, when they think of people asserting themselves, brave.